French and Scottish. That means when I'm sober enough to make love, there's no way I'm going to pay for it. I grew up with six sisters, no brothers, and now I'm neurotic about toilet seats and hand-me-downs. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Make up your mind. First time, that might be my fault. Second time, sorry, sister, you're stupid. Do a quick visual inspection before you plop your naked butt down on anything. That's the way I live my life. We are having some fun here. Tell you a little bit more about myself. My mother, I grew up in a very strict family. My mother once washed my mouth out with soap for saying the word butter. I didn't like that at all. And then at the dinner table a couple of days later, I hear her say, "God damn it." I said, "Mommy, you just swore. You just said, God damn it. You switched a couple letters around, but the intent is still there. You just swore." She's like, no. If you don't say the word, you're not really swearing. I was like, yeah, right. Does that mean I get to say things like, duck my sick food, yuck and it shed? Judging by the flavor of the ivory that night, the answer was no. And I think we're living in a pretty weird world. I think the problem is the way we raise our kids. I mean, now we have kids with time out. Go to your room and play. How is that a punishment? We had time in the field, 3 hours, go home. And I'm pretty sure I know what the problem is. First of all, I think we're all so complacent with what's happening, and the changes become so slow, and it's not, unless I'm glad to see some of the older folks here in the audience, you can see the trend. You can look back over 40 years, and you can see how it's eroding, how our freedoms and rights are being eroded. And I'm pretty sure I know what the problem is. I think people in Canada need to wake up and smell the bacon and realize no one is cooking them breakfast. That's their ass in the fire. And I think the reason is because we teach our kids wrong. When we're raising our kids, we teach our kids fairy tales that are false. We completely mess up their brains. What's the biggest lie we teach all our kids? Santa Claus. Big, big lie. Now, believe it or not, Santa Claus is actually a 5,000-year-old pagan tradition. Early Christianity adopted it out of convenience. And I'm going to prove it by linking two seemingly unrelated facts. First of all, what are the three colors of Christmas?
Red, green, and white.
Red, white, and green. Now remember that. It's going to be important. What are the names of his last two reindeer? Not so easy now, is it? Last two reindeer, anyone? Donner and Blitzen. Red, white, and green, Donner and Blitzen. Germanic words, Donner and Blitzen, for what? Thunder and lightning. When you get thunder and lightning, the rainy season. What happens during the rainy season? Things grow. What kind of things? Things that need a lot of moisture and very little sunlight. Like, mushrooms? Huh? What color are the most powerful psychoactive mushrooms known to man? Red and white. Where do they grow on? Green moss-covered deadfall. That's right, folks. Santa Claus is nothing more than a 5,000-year-old mushroom-induced hallucination. And if you don't believe me, you go out when it's Donner and Blitzening, you find and ingest enough of these little red and white mushrooms, you just might see a big, fat, jolly elf flying across the sky, being pulled by a bunch of, let's say, wingless reindeer. Oh, yeah. And it just might be the most natural and logical thing you see all night. You might be like, I think I ate way. No, okay. I'm not saying we shouldn't teach our kids about these stories. They're wonderful, nice stories. But when your kid is about 5 or 6 years of age and they come to you and say, Mommy, Daddy, is there really a Santa Claus? Do not break their little hearts. Don't betray them. Tell them, yes, son, there is. When he says, when can I see him, Daddy? You can say, about 20 minutes after eating this. I know it tastes like bark, son, but if you want to see Santa, you have to eat the soup. Yeah, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Were these happy little people, or were they drug-addicted pimps? Look at the names. Dopey, Sneezy, Sleepy, Happy, Grumpy, Doc, and Bashful. Folks, Dopey was a pothead. Sneezy was a cokehead. He actually invented freebasing. Sleepy loved his Valium. Happy dropped ecstasy and acid like them were chocolate-covered Skittles. Grumpy was nothing but a mean alcoholic. Dog was the quack who set him up with all this. And Bashful was the undercover cop with unresolved homosexual tendencies. You thought they were going to work singing tunes about work? No, they're going to work and they're dealing with their prostitutes. Hi-ho, hi-ho, hey, get back to work, you ho. Go to bed and bring me dough. Hi-ho, hi-ho, hi-ho. They don't tell you that part. Yeah, and Jack and Jill. Apparently they went up a hill to fetch a pail of water. Who puts their wells up in the hills? Huh? Nobody! They're in valleys. You got a less bedrock to drill through and a little thing I like to call gravity working for you. You can go up into the hill and you can get something by the bucket that looks like water, but it's flammable. You're getting it from hillbillies. It's called moonshine. That's why Jack fell down and Jill became the town's diseased prostitute. And then we don't stop there. We then teach our kids fairy tales that completely screw with their morals. Look at Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack and the Beanstalk. What does Jack do? First of all, he disobeys his mother, the little delinquent, and he comes back, instead of with a cow, he comes back with beans. He plants those beans. Fortuitously, they grow into a magical stalk that reaches right to the clouds. Jack's from BC. Jack climbs this stalk, he gets up to the top, what does he find? A big castle with a giant living in it. Now folks, think about it. This giant, hasn't he gone way, way, way out of his way to be a good and unobtrusive neighbor? He's living on a cloud, for Christ's sake. What does Jack do? Breaks into his home, steals his own prized possession, his only friend, runs away with it, and when the giant tries to rightfully recover, which is his, what does Jack do? He murders him. And Jack's the hero. It makes no sense to me. And then you think we'd stop there, eh? We're messing with their brains with these fairy tales. We should stop there, but we know. Then we hit them with tongue twisters. Tongue twisters that make no sense and are just going to twist their brains even further. And it's all because there's a plan behind it. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, how many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick? Who here knows what a peck is? Farmer? Farmer? Peck, what's a peck? A peck is a quarter of a bushel. Quarter of a bushel. Now there's 4 quarters to a peck, 0.8983 liters per quart. That's 8.809 liters per peck, okay? What, you can't do that in your head? Now folks, think about it. These are peppers. Great big round hollow fruit. They're not blueberries. Someone picks a peck of peppers, that's a lazy prick picking. Plus, think about it. They're pickled peppers. They've already been picked. They've been plucked from the vine, soaked in brine for a long, long time. What the hell is Peter doing re-picking pre-packaged pickled peppers? I think the whole thing should be changed to something like, so if Pickle Peter, the part-time piper, picked a peck of potent peppers, how many potent peppers did Pickle Peter, the part-time piper, pick? See, now at least it makes sense. And then we don't stop there. No, then we hear how much wood could a woodchuck? Oh, don't even get me started on that. Chucking wood, according to Mrs. Webster's little son, never had a date. Chucking wood is to bend over at the waist, grasp small pieces of wood, toss them to one side with a short swinging side-to-side motion of the arms. Thus, according to Webster, is to chuck wood. First of all, folks, a woodchuck, they do not have the opposing thumb necessary to properly grasp anything. Secondly, a woodchuck's shoulder blades, they are not articulated for side-to-side motion. It's front to back for the woodchuck. Digging the hole, I can buy that. Running from a fox, I'm there for you too. Chucking wood, you can fuck right off. I just don't buy it. And the reason why they do this, of course, is by the time you get to about 18, 19, your brain is so messed up you will believe anything the law society, the cops, and the government tells you. It's all about getting you betrayed to the point where you stop thinking. I was supposed to, you wouldn't believe the trip I had out here. I was supposed to fly on WestJet. WestJet didn't like the fact that I didn't have government-issued identification. So I ended up renting a vehicle, hired a driver, and apparently around Perry Sound, the people who are in charge of my life decided that there weren't enough plot twists, so he ended up